Hello again. So, fundamentally, basically all of data analysis is doing something to something. You have a data set and you want to do something to it. You want to find means or run statistical tests or graph it or modify it. So in this video, we are going to introduce the idea of functions. And again, the purpose of this video is absolutely not to introduce you to all of the major functions or really even to a small handful of the major functions. We're just going to introduce the syntax and talk about them and run through a few examples. So, in R, actions are carried out with function. This is good news, or at least I think it's good news. If you have experience with Python, you know there are functions and there are also methods. I always find the distinction a little confusing. In R, we just have functions. And the syntax of a function is the name of the function, and then in open parentheses, a list of arguments. Maybe there's just one argument, maybe there's a half dozen arguments, maybe more, as many arguments as are required. And when I say an argument is just a piece of data or information the function needs to run. Like we've seen the head function when we talked about data frame. So the head function returns the first few rows of a data frame or a vector or whatever. It's very versatile. So if you know this function needs something in order to run, we need to tell the head function what the data frame is. If we try to run head and we don't give it any arguments, it spits out an error message. The head function needs an argument. We've seen the penguins data set already. Let's feed that to head. And now the head function runs. No errors. It shows us the first 6 rows. The head function runs with a single argument. It can take multiple arguments, though. If I use the head function and all I give it is the data set, it shows us the first 6 rows. Well, maybe I don't want the first 6 rows. Maybe for whatever reason, I want the first 10 rows. Well, that 10 is also going to be an argument. If I type head penguins, comma 10, it obligingly shows me the first 10 rows. How do I know that the head function can take multiple arguments. Well, you can look at documentation. If you type a question mark followed by the name of the function. And it has to be said, documentation is written for experienced users. It can sometimes be a little inscrutable when you're first starting out your journey. But if we, this does just describe what the function does. And if we scroll down a little, we see default S3 method head x comma n equals 6L. So this is telling us that the head function can take an x argument and the head function can take an n argument. And again, I think the documentation gets a little lost in the weeds if this is your first time seeing head, but you can scroll down and get a list of, or rather get information about the arguments. So head can take 2 arguments. Don't worry about the 3 dots. We won't get to anything. We won't get to that in this course. When I tried to run head without a data frame, I got an error. So when I tried to run head without this x argument, R didn't like that. But when I ran it without the n, I didn't get an error. It ran. You can see that that's true from the documentation. In the documentation, it says that n equals something. N equals 6. Don't worry about the L, the number's the important thing. This is providing R with a default. There's no default for X. If I don't provide it with X, it just doesn't know what to do. But if I don't provide it with N, it will use the default of 6. Let me see. When we're working with arguments, order matters. If I try to run head 6, penguins, it doesn't like this because the second argument is supposed to be an integer. It's supposed, for our purposes, it's supposed to be an integer. It's supposed to be saying how many rows we want to show. And R looks at this and it says, well, we can't show penguins rows. What are you talking about? And it spits out an error. This X and this N are the names of arguments. And we can explicitly tell R that penguins is going into X and 6 is going into N. I guess let's change that to 7. 6 is the default. There's not much point in saying that um, we don't need this syntax as we have seen. Penguins, comma, 7 work. But this can make our function a lot more readable. Like if our function takes a half dozen arguments, it can be very easy to get confused about which argument is which, or to get your arguments in the wrong order. So this is helping with readability more than anything else. Although it does have one advantage, which is that if we use this format, order no longer matters. So, this is not a video to show you all of the important functions. It's just a video to introduce the basic concepts. But one argument shows up so often in so many different functions that I want to show it now. Let's take this penguins data set and let's try to find the mean of bill length. The syntax is just mean, and then whatever we want to take the mean of. In this case, the data frame penguins, and the column bill length. If I look at the documentation for mean, the thing I'm taking the mean of, the vector, is the only mandatory argument. There are other arguments. There's this trim argument. There's this na.rm argument, but they have default values. So this is the only thing I need to feed the mean function for it to work. When I run this code, though, it doesn't provide me with the mean. It gives me NA, not a number. And what's happening here is that in the bill length data, you look at row 4 of the data set, there's a missing value. There's a penguin whose bill length we don't know. And the mean function gets to this missing value and it throws up its hands and it says, well, there's no way to know what the mean is. A very, very, very common argument. You see it right here in the documentation, na.rm will allow you to ignore missing values. If I set na.rm to true, now I'm saying I want to find the mean of this vector. And if there are missing values, don't worry about it. Just ignore them and take the mean of the values that we do have. And there we go. And usually arguments are function specific. Like we have this, the mean function has this trim argument. And if you feed trim to a different function, it's going to say, what are you talking about? I don't know what trim is. But this specific argument, NA.RM, shows up independently in a lot of different functions. So this is something that you should, I, I hate to say just, memorize stuff. Let's say this is something that you're going to probably commit to memory, whether you want to or not, just because you'll be using it so often in this thing.